guess technically it would be the Bad Brains. I heard about them from Jack Flanagan and the Mob. He and I were in a band called Heart Attack, and we were being told that we kind of missed out on the whole 70s thing. We were kids, 12, 13, he was 16, and we'd go see bands like the Stimulators in the city and Shrapnel, you know, really good punky rock and roll bands, but we were craving something else. And we'd listen to some of the West Coast bands, Dead Kennedys, and some of those records, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, and the Dickies, because they were fast. And one night Jack came back and he said, I saw this band, the Bad Brains. And I was like, wasn't that a Ramones song? And he's like, yes, they were amazing. Opened for Richard Lloyd at CBGB's. And it changed everything. He just started talking about them. And eventually I would go down and see them at CBGB's when there were still tables there. And they'd play 20-minute sets and they were in suits. And it was just unbelievable. Everything seemed completely different after that. Like the bar was raised to a whole nother level. I guess 171A in a funny way, if I'm going into hardcore, because it was more than a club. It was like a place where everybody met with the Rat Cage record store in the basement that would tell you what's going on. You went there for information. You could see a show, play a show, record a record, a demo, hang out, or some days I even watched like Black Flag breaking in Henry Rollins or the Bad Brains working on a reggae song. Unfortunately, it was illegal, like all the good things, and I saw the Subhumans and the Bad Brains there for $3, 2 sets, and the Bad Brains were very generous to lend people their equipment, and they would let other people play on their gear. And we always thought if we played on their gear, maybe we'd sound a little bit better, as close to them as possible, or you know, maybe a little bit like them. And we got up on their gear, the big Lucite drums, because we had all cheap stuff. We were kids in Queens, and we got up there and we're ready to play at 171A. So generous of them, and the fire marshal just walked in and shut it down. But there was just great nights there. Jerry Williams had a big heart, and he looked out for all of us. And it was just a whole center, a youth center, and a club. Did I ever live in a squat? No, I lived in my studio, which was a studio I shared with the False Prophets, 169 Avenue B. It's now called Dream Baby. It was a lakeside lounge, but I lived in there, I guess, when I left home. Probably when I was 16, and we used to live on outdated yogurts and tofu and things. I used to work in a health food store, and we'd just be on futons or lawn chairs, and we could rehearse and we could live there, and technically it wasn't a living space. But no, I never did the squat, I never had a pit bull, and I never did heroin. I wish I saw the Bad Brains open for the Clash at Bonds. I was mad at the Clash for getting all funky and disco-y, and I was like, bring on Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, and I felt that my favorite band, the Clash, had sold out. I was wrong. They were right. They were bringing in all kinds of music and embracing it and expanding the global palette. And I was a 14-year-old, you know, you're holding on tight to what you need and what your ground is. We'd ride the trains, and we were kind of at war, you know, with hip-hop kids, and it was a lot of tension, so I didn't really go for all that, and I missed out on those shows at Bonds, and especially the night that the Bad Brains opened for them. I would have loved to have seen that. DOA at A7, that would have been something with the Chuck Biscuits lineup and Randy Rampage, Joey Shithead, and Dave Gregg, as well as the Peppermint Lounge on 45th Street. I missed all those lineup with Chuck Biscuits and DOA shows. That's something that really, you know, I wish I saw. I never saw Led Zeppelin, and I did get to see AC/DC with Bon Scott. I'm from Queens, Queens all the way, yeah. But I have good friends in Brooklyn. I have a song called Brooklyn about a girl that moved there. But I'm still going to Planet Queens. Well, a night that resonated with me for one of the greatest hardcore shows was when Black Flag, a band I had read about in Slash magazine, seen a little special on a late night TV show about what's happening in LA. They came through, and I went by myself to the Peppermint Lounge. Mission of Burma from Boston, more of an arty band, was on the bill. And I went there, and I saw a few people I knew from the scene, and then I kind of met these guys from DC outside, and they all came, a ton of them just came up for this Black Flag show. And as the show started, they started with Clocked In. Chuck Dukowski was pacing around like a tiger in a cage, banging the bass. Des Cadena had like socks up, like this crazy Southern California look, like over his pants, the tube socks. Robo had the drums all straight. Greg Ginn had this Lucite guitar, and they're just sitting there, and this tension is just building. And suddenly when they erupted into the first song, all these guys from DC started dancing in this other crazy way, this low down, creepy crawl, West Coast, Huntington Beach, like the Circle Jerks guy. Like they were just all doing this, and they wrecked most of the people at the Department Lounge. Nobody knew what hit them. Because in those days, we'd go to shows and the fun was to knock over the tables at Max's, make some room, you'd skank, maybe you'd jump up and down, you'd slam into each other, girls and guys, gay and straight. It was a real open scene. Suddenly this came real down low, real tough, just kind of wrecked everybody at this fancy Department Lounge club. And a few of our guys from New York could really hang. Guys like James Contra and Harley and Jimmy, a bunch of people. Mojo, I believe, was there. And some people were able to keep going with it, and other people just got wiped away. But I felt like it was a change of like, this is something that's going to happen. Not only was the show phenomenal, but what was going on was like that. And Dead Kennedys at Irving Plaza, because it was pretty early on when it was going from punk to hardcore, and Jello would crowd surf. And he'd go out there and sing and be over the crowd. And nobody was really doing that. I mean, we've seen pictures of Iggy doing that, with the peanut butter at the Cincinnati Pop Festival. But to be out there, and again, these guys from DC came and they fucking wrecked the crowd and they got on stage. And I think they was having fun with putting this new ingredient into what would be our hardcore scene. Yeah, well, guitarists in hardcore would be Greg Ginn, East Bay Ray, Dr. No, and Paul Cripple. Those would be the ones for style. For precision, definitely Todd Youth and Jack Flanagan for really just being so good at ripping like this really fast, heavy style. And the other guys more for like a creative, arty kind of thing would be Paul Cripple. That definitely had a weird spy, Buzzcocks, and East Bay Ray, phenomenal. And Greg Ginn came and touched that. That's like off jazz, noise, art, punk, whatever. So I think those would be the ones that come to mind. Singers, frontmen would be Dave Insurgent, one of the unsung heroes, the guy, we lost him way too soon, Reagan Youth being such an important band, such a charismatic guy. As Jerry Williams once said to me, the hardcore scene wouldn't have happened without the three Daves. Dave Gibson, who ran A7, Dave Insurgent, singer for Reagan Youth, and Dave Parsons from the Rat Cage. I don't know if Dave Gibson is on the planet, but the other two have passed, rest their souls. But other singers, Ian MacKaye, though I was disappointed when he stopped singing at the shows and he had the crowd just sing, but I think the crowd was taken over. My favorite Black Flag period is Dez. I definitely like Jello as a frontman. HR is probably one of the greatest frontmen we've ever seen. And can't forget Jimmy G, because he approached everything with fun and spirit and having it, not just be so serious and just all political, Message to the youth is, what we all want is freedom and expression. I think you got to stick with your friends. That's your family or your family. Stay true to your heart. Play from your heart. Don't give up. Don't believe the bullshit. Trust, be loving, be understanding, acceptance, forgiveness, and love, and just keep up the fight to be yourself. Be brave, be fearless, and even fucking up is part of it. Well, I broke up my band Heart Attack in 1984 because I felt that the reasons I got into this music was to be different than all the people I grew up with in mainstream middle-class Queens. And then I felt like the scene became too macho and too metal, and I stopped. So the last Heart Attack gig was 84 4th of July. On the bill, just to give you a thing, was the first Cro-Mags gig. They used some of our gear. Eric Casanova was the singer. So I kind of stepped out of that for a while, and I started to listen to more things like Billy Bragg and the Replacements, and got more into songs, and instead of it just being about the mosh pit. I felt like we could have sang anything, and people just wanted to jump around and hit each other. And so it was time for a change. And as I stepped out, I went on to do another band, D-Generation, more of a rock and roll punk thing. And then in the 90s, we were all involved in a club called Coney Island High on St. Mark's. And my friends that I always stayed in touch with, the people, and I'd still go to shows. I'd go see the Bad Brains or Murphy's Law. It was building up while I had dropped out of it. The shows at Rock Hotel, and it was suddenly growing into this other thing. So we brought it back, Jimmy and Paz and Jack Flanagan, as Creepy Crawl weekend matinees at Coney Island High. And watching the new kids get into it and buy records, and maybe I missed out on a lot of periods that happened in between, Gorilla Biscuits, Youth of Today, all this Revelation Records, but suddenly so many different things had come and different things had been added to it. And just like anything, it's an attitude, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of thinking and living. And this information is being passed on, just like new generations read Please Kill Me, or, and they get something out of it. So I think hardcore is alive for the people that need it, and I still need it when I put on those records that mean something to me. And there are new bands. Unfortunately, I wish I knew more of the new bands, but I know there's new kids that are still getting this stuff. And you can't say, oh, it happened then, you missed it. I got into the New York Dolls not in 1973, in 1992 or whatever. So it still meant a lot to me, and it affected my life. So this music will go forever, so it's never dead.